Friend of the president-elect, Peter Calico, and we have Trump biographer Michael D'Antonio, author of The Truth About Trump. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us this morning. Peter, congratulations to you as friend of. Let me ask you a fundamental question that the president-elect is dealing with right now. Which is he? There's a Jekyll and Hyde feeling about him. He came out, he was gracious, he says it's time to bind the wounds, let's unite. But then there's this feeling about him, evidence somewhat in these protests, but not too much should be made about them, that, well, he's the one who divided. He exploited that. He played that to advantage. So how can he heal what he exploited? What do you say to people?
I think that what you need to remember about him is he does what is necessary for the job. And when you are running a campaign, you are appealing to people to vote for you. When you become president, you are now the president of everybody. And I think that was exactly the tone he set, which was the correct tone. He's very talented, Chris, about things like that. And he has that way of understanding what is necessary. But he has that other talent, which I really like. His children call that he's a blue-collar billionaire. He understands what working people go through. I have a little of that, not as much, but a great practitioner, and that was your dad. He was governor of New York.
Just didn't have the billionaire part, which is why I got to do this job.
But he had governor part, which was not bad either. But he understood what it took, what working people are going through. And I think that's interesting about President-elect Trump, and I think that's why he won.
He certainly tapped into something, and people are going to have that after analysis about what does this mean for white America. They were so dominant in this election. You on the personal side. So to understand Peter's point, we have to understand who Trump is. And in your understanding of him as a person, do you believe that intolerance is something that's deep-seated in him, or do you believe that what's deep-seated is the need to win, and that that's how he got there?
Well, he is extremely pragmatic, and so he did set about to win, and that is clear, and I don't think, I wouldn't want to play checkers against Donald Trump, because every game he enters, he knows how to win. So that was then. He does have the ability to pivot, and he may have been waiting to be elected president before he turned to be presidential. There's also this whole idea that the office inhabits the man more than the man inhabiting the office, and I think it's quite awesome to consider what happened to Donald Trump on Tuesday. He suddenly became president-elect. So he can rise to the occasion. He does have a feeling for the average guy and gal, and I think it is incumbent upon him to do the healing. It can't just be telling people this is what we're going to do. I think he has to act, because the fear and anxiety that some people have is real, and we don't want a country so divided.
Peter, one more beat on this. One of the reasons I was happy you accepted the invitation to come on the show is that you're a no BS guy. People know that about you. You're not going to change your opinion because it makes somebody happy, okay? But, as ethnics, it doesn't make you feel any better. You're Jewish, you're Italian, whatever your ethnic background is, you never feel better if someone says, look, the reason I said that Italians are criminals is because it helped me get elected here. I don't think you guys are criminals. Don't feel bad about that. Right. It doesn't make me feel any better. So how do you reconcile that from those who feel they were put in the category of other by Trump's campaign, whether they're gay or whatever minority group they're from, so you're telling me you only stoked intolerance against me because it got you elected, but you don't actually feel that way, and you think I should be okay with it?
I think that he didn't do that just to get elected. He understood that there were people out there who the world had forgotten. And they used to be a really important part of our country. I looked at the Michigan map, I looked at the Pennsylvania map, the Ohio map, and these were rock union towns that he carried, because the people and the country forgot those.
Yeah, but, that doesn't address the question that you asked. The question you asked was about the people he insulted, the people that he rejected, and the fact that he did that is incontrovertible. He did it many times, and it was an appeal to the worst in us. And I think now Donald has to show that he can appeal to the best of us. And,
Can he?
I think it's in him. I really do think it's in him. I hope that he has people that help him to do that. I think that a lot of his campaign surrogates were just as mean-spirited, and they're going to have to show that they have this other side of them too. They're complete human beings, so let's pray that that's what comes out.
Go ahead, Peter, please.
The main driving force that he's had since I know him, that's a long time, he likes to win. He doesn't like to lose. And when he becomes president, he will want America to win, and that's all Americans. Because if America wins, that plays into his being of being a winner.
It's, you know, the biggest fundamental shift that we're going to see is when you're on the way in, you can blame everybody. Once you're in, you're to blame from everybody. It'll be interesting to see how President-elect Trump does with that in one small way, even with the media. His relationship's got to change. Mr. D'Antonio, Mr. Calico, thank you. You helped us understand things better this morning. Appreciate it. There's a lot of news for you this morning. Let's get to it.
Now it's time for America to bind the wounds of division and unify our great country.
We must accept this result and then look to the future.
This needs to be a time of redemption, not a time of recrimination.
I promise you that I will not let you down.
We who believe in freedom will not rest.
We're not Democrats first, we're not Republicans first. We are Americans first.
This is New Day with Chris Coleman and Allison Cameron.
Welcome to our viewers in the United States and around the world. This is New Day, and up first, President-elect Donald Trump is going to Washington to meet with President Obama. This is part of the formal transitioning of power. The Oval Office meeting at the White House is going to be awkward with a capital A. Why? Because Trump is not only a critic of President Obama, he's the guy who tried to prove that Obama wasn't born here.
So we're hearing about unity, but we're seeing a different picture in some cities. Protesters taking to the streets, some blocking highways, as you can see, others setting fires and chanting, quote, "Not my president." We have it all covered for you, so let's begin with CNN's Athena Jones. She is live at the White House. Hi, Athena.
Hi, Allison. This is not the meeting that President Obama was hoping to have or expecting to have. He spent months saying that he didn't think Donald Trump would ever be president. Well, now Donald Trump is going to be president, and so the focus has to shift to the peaceful handover of power. Now, the White House has talked about how much they appreciated the way George W. Bush's team handled that transition back in 2008 and 2009. It was smooth, it was professional, and this is something the president spoke about again yesterday in the Rose Garden.
I have instructed my team to follow the example that President Bush's team set 8 years ago and work as hard as we can to make sure that this is a successful transition for the president-elect. Because we are now all rooting for his success and uniting and leading the country. The peaceful transition of power is one of the hallmarks of our democracy.
Now, White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest has said that it's too early to say what sort of impact Trump's election will have on President Obama's top policy priorities, but we know that Trump ran on promises to undo much of Obama's legacy, and so we expect him to get to work right away on things like repealing and replacing Obamacare, reversing some of the president's executive actions on things like immigration and regulations of power plants. Trump has also said he wants to withdraw from agreements like the Iran nuclear deal, the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal, and also the Paris Climate Accord. And I can tell you we're getting some indications from Congress that TPP, that trade deal, is all but dead. So there's a lot to discuss and a lot that could change under a Trump presidency. After President-elect Trump meets here with President Obama, he and Vice President-elect Mike Pence will go on to meet with House Speaker Paul Ryan. So a lot on the schedule, a lot to watch today.
It is going to be a very busy day, Athena. Thanks so much for setting it up for us. Donald Trump now has 2 months to fill thousands of jobs as he prepares to take office. It's one of Washington's favorite parlor games. Who will get the top posts in Trump's cabinet? CNN's Sunlen Serfati is live in Washington with a look at some of the names being floated. Who are you hearing, Sunlen?
A lot of possibilities here, Allison, and President-elect Donald Trump and his team, they have really been hunkered down and huddled up, going over all these potential names for these top jobs. And I can tell you a lot of these names, they just won't be a surprise to you because many of the people are ones that we've heard of standing by Donald Trump during the campaign trail, in his inner circle during the campaign. Now they could go on to fill out his cabinet and turn into his new inner circle in the White House.
On day 2 as president-elect, Donald Trump now looking to turn his promises into policy, beginning with his call for unity.
Now it's time for America to bind the wounds of division.
Words echoed by President Obama and Hillary Clinton, both pledging a peaceful transition of power.
We are now all rooting for his success in uniting and leading the country.
We must accept this result and then look to the future. Donald Trump is going to be our president. We owe him an open mind and the chance to lead.
Trump now in the throes of building his administration.
So we have to get ready to form a government.
Potentially rewarding some of his top supporters. RNC Chairman Reince Priebus, one prospective option for Trump's chief of staff.
I haven't thought about it. And right now I'm chairman of the party. I'm excited about that job.
New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who has led his transition team, also being eyed for top posts. Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani under consideration for Attorney General or Secretary of Homeland Security, while Newt Gingrich is being floated as the prospective Secretary of State. Other possible cabinet picks, Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions for Defense Secretary, billionaire businessman Carl Icahn for Treasury Secretary, and retired Army General Michael Flynn for National Security Advisor. When Trump takes office in January, he'll have extraordinary power to push through his agenda with Republican majorities in both houses of Congress.
He heard those voices that were out there that other people weren't hearing, and he just earned a mandate.
And certainly new attention is now being paid to what candidate Trump said on the campaign trail about what his first 100 days in office would potentially look like. He's made several big, broad, sweeping proposals, things like cleaning up Washington, protecting the American worker, and restoring rule of law. But he also did at times make very specific, detailed promises like repealing Obamacare, renegotiating some specific trade deals, and Chris, perhaps the most notorious promise that we heard him repeat time and time again from the campaign trail to build that wall along the Mexican border. Chris.
All right, Solomon, thank you very much. Many provocative questions, but forget the questions. Let's get some answers. I can do that for you right now. I got former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani. He is Trump's campaign senior advisor, and many more soon, maybe more soon. Good to see you. Congratulations, Mr. Mayor. So let's get some answers here. You just said something to me while we were coming out of Sondland's piece. Something happens to a man who becomes president. How does that inform your idea of what we will see out of President-elect Trump today? Because many people are concerned, Obama and Trump, they hate each other. This has been really ugly and bitter. This could be bad. What do you say?
I say you're going to see a very, I hate to use the word cordial because it's used almost as a diplomatic term, you know. When people yelled at each other, you say they had a cordial meeting. But I think you're going to see a very professionally run meeting between two men who actually have a lot of charm. We know Donald from some of his comments that weren't so charming, and we know Obama now on the campaign trail from some of the comments that weren't so charming. But sitting together, I think they're going to be able to talk like two of the very few people in the history of the world, one who has the power and one who is going to
that may be him. You want to answer that?
And one who is going to what
are you doing on with Cuomo?
And one who is going to hold the power. So I would say that yeah, we got to do something with this thing. Off. Done. Okay.
Was it him?
No.
Okay. Can't have the president-elect interrupted my interview.
No.
So you were saying two of the few men who understand
that this is the weight of the world is on their shoulders. And Donald, I think, realized it the last couple of days of the campaign. I think he really realized it when he saw...
You've seen a change?
Yeah.
Now, so people are going to come to you, and they're going to say, okay, he won. Democracy affords him an opportunity. People should have an open mind. It's trickier here, though, because when someone comes out and says, we should be unified, okay, when they are the person who is blamed with creating the division, now it's more complicated because which one of these people do you believe? Is this the Trump that we saw as president-elect or the one who was stoking intolerance?
My advice would be the same advice that I gave President Bush when he won in '04. And kind of wasn't followed. I think you go with the things you know you can pass. Like, for example, way back then, Bush could have passed immigration reform, just like Obama could have when he first came in. And both of them passed on it, so now they leave it for now.
So you think he should start with it?
No, I think he should start with tax reform.
Tax reform
because
first?
I think he's got the votes for it. I think he definitely has the Republican votes for it in House and Senate, and I think he probably has maybe 20% of the Democratic vote for it. So he could get it done with a bipartisan majority.
But people will say, wait a minute, I'm here for the wall. I'm angry. I want the wall, and I want to drain the swamp.
The wall is going to take a while. I'm sure he's going to build it. It's a campaign promise. He's not going to break a campaign
Guys in
promise.
Congress don't want it. On both sides, there's resistance.
Well, he can do it by executive order, by just reprogramming money within the immigration service. And not only that, they have actually approved a wall for certain portions of the border that hasn't even been built yet. So you could take a year building that out with what has been approved.
So go with what you can get done. Let bygones be bygones. Move on from the politics.
And after you get a couple of credits under your belt, like tax reform, which I think can get done, like a stimulus program, but a real one for infrastructure. This time, the commitment has to be the money gets spent on infrastructure. And this is not to go back over old wounds, but I think President Obama made a big mistake with his stimulus program when he promised it would be spent on infrastructure. But it wasn't. There were no shovel-ready jobs. Right now, we need it. That'll put Americans back to work. That'll be a good long-term investment in America. It's going to help grow our economy.
But if this is to not be about settling scores, politics at its worst, keeping a list, that raises an interesting issue that I want your take on specifically. Hillary Clinton, big part of his campaign rhetoric, some of his angriest talk was, I am going to appoint a special prosecutor to look into her. Chris Christie was on TV this morning. Other surrogates of Trump have said, look, that's politics. It's over now. Leave it alone. You haven't said that.
Well, I think it's a tough decision. I think it's a tough decision because you have to weigh what Chris is saying, which is that it's been a tradition in our politics to put things behind us. On the other hand, you have to look at how bad was it? Because suppose somebody comes along a year from now and is alleged to have stolen $50,000 from a charity, and she was never investigated for hundreds of millions.
So do it then.
Well, not after you pardon her. You can't do it.
But is it about pardoning or is it about leaving her alone? How do you expect to get anything done with the Democrats if you're still going after Hillary Clinton?
I think that's I don't know what the right answer to that is. I think it's a tough one that should be given a lot of thought, and it shouldn't be an off-the-cuff answer. The equal administration of justice is one of our most important principles.
But you have the FBI that's taken a look at the foundation stuff. They haven't moved on it.
Why not? Because they were denied a grand jury. They were denied a grand jury by the Eastern District of New York.
But you had Comey, who didn't recommend anything. You had the DOJ who said they didn't think there was anything.
He never got to investigate. He never got to investigate the foundation. So there are legal questions that are more complicated than just saying, let's forget about it. If, in fact, you believe you have a Justice Department that's been corrupted, you got to fix it. And he needs an Attorney General who's going to be like Edward Levy was after Watergate. It's got to be an Attorney General.
You think Comey has to go?
That's a decision for the president. That's a presidential appointment. He's got to make that decision.
Well, it's not easy to get someone out, by the way. It's not a political,
I would think,
he's got a term
I would
involved.
think if the president wanted Jim out, Jim would leave. The FBI director can't function without...
So you think it's a possibility, but it's up to the president?
That's up to the president, and I think it's a close one. Personally, I trust Jim. I like Jim. He worked for me. He was an assistant U.S. attorney that I trained. And although I had a severe disagreement with him...
Yeah, you've been beating him with a fairly big stick about what happened with...
Yeah, but I've never said I believe he was corrupted or dishonest. I believe his judgment was incorrect.
You. If they asked you to be the special prosecutor, would you accept that role?
No.
If they ask you to be Attorney General, would
that'd
you
be a closer question, because if
I say no to the President of the United States if he says, I need you, Rudy, to do this for me?
Well, if it really was just me and I couldn't point to three others that would be just as good or
Who's
better.
just as good?
Well, I don't know yet. We'll see.
You think Chris Christie's just as good as you?
Chris is excellent. excellent choice for any job in government.
Notwithstanding, he has a close relationship with my brother, the governor of New York. You don't think he's tarred by the Bridgegate situation?
I think the Bridgegate situation was an exaggerated political situation.
2 convictions, all counts.
I know. Convicted.
That's exaggeration?
I think it was exaggerated. Never should have gotten to that.
2 convictions, all counts.
Chris,
I'm just saying, you know, in a world where nobody ever goes to trial.
A good lawyer can convict you in a lot of different ways.
I mean, are you kidding me?
I don't know.
Who is it?
I don't know. I have no idea. Now it's
the same ringtone as my mother, by the way. What is it with you all the time?
No, I don't think it's my wife. I don't know who it is. It can't be my mother. Otherwise, it would be.
I'd jail him. So, do you have it in you to be Attorney General? Do you feel that you have the energy? Do you feel have the desire?
I certainly have the energy, and there's probably nobody that knows the Justice Department better than me.
So nobody's better than you. You just said, hold on, I got you. I finally got you. It's been taking me 35 years. You just said
17 years.
If I couldn't point to 3 other people who are as good as me, then yes, if it's just me. You just said, nobody knows it better than I do.
Well, I was an assistant U.S. attorney.
That's right.
I was the Associate Attorney General of the United States, the 3rd ranking official under Ronald Reagan. I've argued in front of the Supreme Court of the United States. I've argued in almost every circuit. And I tried as a personal lawyer and U.S. attorney over 50 cases.
Right.
And
it's a good resume.
So I know the bottom of the Justice Department, and I know the top of the Justice Department.
Would you be okay leaving your spot at Powell and all the travel around the world and all the different enterprises you're in?
Those are things I would have to give serious thought to. And also, really, my interest in this election, and I know people have a hard time believing it, is, and they have a different view of it, I felt that if Hillary got elected, we were going to move in a socialist direction. And I didn't want to leave a country behind for my children that was moving in that direction. I want to move more in the opportunistic American direction of hard work, good education, straighten out the educational programs, the kind of America my parents left to me. So that was the reason I was working 20 hours a day. Plus, as you know, my close personal friendship with Donald Trump. Getting a job is secondary to me. I want him to have a good administration. And if it's the right fit and everything works, okay. If it doesn't, I'm perfectly happy with that.
Would you accept the position if it came with the condition of, I don't want to go after Clinton, leave it alone, let's focus, we got a lot of other things, I don't want to create more political...
Well, I think that's a presidential decision also.
So if it came to you that way, from the president, then you're all right with it?
But we would have to talk about that. We would have to talk about what the ramifications of that to other prosecutions, to future prosecutions. How would you couch that? Suppose more evidence came forward a year from now that we don't know about now that makes it a much worse situation. I don't think President Obama should pardon her. I don't think that would be right. Because if he pardons her, he's got to pardon about 15 other people who helped her. It wouldn't be fair to pardon her and not pardon the guy who hammered the cell phones. You got to pardon that guy too. You can't have...
But none of those people are looking at any charges.
Well, that guy didn't get immunity.
Right, but he also hasn't had any recommendation of prosecution against him.
Well, that doesn't mean he can't be investigated. The FBI still has an ongoing investigation, and we don't know what it's going to uncover. So you'd have to cut that off.
Although Comey has said several times now, it's not even a close call.
But he has never said anything about the foundation.
Oh, you're talking about the foundation. Yeah. You were saying destroying the phones. I thought you meant email.
The emails may very well have been destroyed because the emails show the connection between the State Department and the fact.
But do you believe that the value of that investigation is worth the political instability it would create?
I told you. I think that's a very close question. I think that somebody should review that very carefully as to how bad is that evidence, and if it isn't as bad as some of the exaggerators think it is, then maybe the best thing to do is to forget about it and move on. If it is really bad, then somebody's got to look at it who's independent.
Well, you won't know until you're in the role. So maybe that'll influence you in terms of your decision. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Here's my view. I was taught this by David Garth. David taught me the following. There's no such thing as a bad question, there's just a bad answer. And you want to get asked the bad questions because you want the constituents to hear your answer to it.
Well, that's why we're here. Not
Thank
to
you.
ask bad questions.
Well, I mean,
tough to get. Tough. Not you, by the way.
I also like that he said sessions, as though there's a therapeutic quality to this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Chris. President Obama about to meet face-to-face with his successor, President-elect Donald Trump. How will they get past all of the bad birther blood? We will speak with former Obama senior advisor David Axelrod next.